To from Ashley Bowen, he's the National Specification Manager from Fatra, Australia. His topic today is direct tile adhered systems. So can we all welcome Ashley? Thanks, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Oh, I've got to pass the baton.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Joe, and everybody for allowing me to present this morning. Today's presentation is on our InnoPro 807G, which is a direct tile adhered sheet membrane system. It's relatively new to the market in the sense of not many people know about it, but it's the same technology that we've implemented sort of globally for over 90 years. But the presentation is just going to consist of just a basic overview of what the 807G membrane system is. I'll look at individual components, which includes the adhesive, the actual membrane itself, the priming process to enable the adhesion of the tiles to the membrane system, and then the performance and benefits of what this system brings to market. Many of you in the room, familiar faces, probably know a lot about Fatra already, but just a very brief overview for those of you that don't. We've been around for literally 90 years this year. All of our PVC sheet membranes are manufactured in Central Europe. We have no other facility anywhere else in the world where we can make our PVC sheet membranes. We have diversified our product range over the years. We do offer liquid membrane technologies, which is manufactured locally by Bostik, as well as torch-on membranes manufactured by Impa. But all of our PVC sheet membranes, including the 807G, is made in the Czech Republic. There we have 6 production facilities, a recycling facility, a research and development center, and from there we distribute to over 60 countries globally. So this figure shows 2023 figures because we've not quite got 2024 figures yet, but we distribute around about 40 plus million square meters of PVC products globally in 2024. Like I said, there are estimates at this point, but we're looking at over 40 million square meters of PVC products globally. So we are one of the industry leaders in that sort of type of technology. As I mentioned and alluded to before, we are globally renowned to be industry leaders in single-ply PVC sheet membranes, but Bostik, who private label our InnoPro liquid membrane range, consists of the InnoPro 130 for internal wet area waterproofing. We've got the InnoPro 560, which is fully UV stable for external above ground applications. We've got a cementitious 1K, which again can be used external above ground, as well as a negative and positive membrane application for below ground waterproofing. And we do supply various primers, porous and non-porous, to offer a full membrane system range for liquid applied technologies. And again, what we did was partner with Impa. Impa have been around just as long as Fatra. They're celebrating their 90th year in manufacturing, global leader in APP bitumen membrane systems. So we've got the Parallon range, most certainly of the premium nature. This isn't our main field of expertise, but we know there's a market, especially in remedial, for torch-on membrane systems. So the Parallon range consists of peel and stick layer. We've got vent layers. We've got a 3mm mineral. We've got a 4mm cap sheet, as well as all the different accessories to make sure we supply holistic membrane ranges for all different applications. And there's no one membrane that suits every single area and performance criteria. It most certainly is horses for courses. Moving into the membrane system range, it's not just the 807G, which this presentation is going to be based on today. We offer a full range of single-ply membranes from below ground through to above ground. So the 803 is for fully tanked basements systems, retention tanks, retaining walls, infrastructure tunnels. We've got detailing membrane, fleece back PVCs for fully bonded applications, and then polyester reinforced membranes for mechanically attached systems. And again, I won't go into the intricacies of why we bond or fix. That's not really the purpose of the presentation today. If anyone's got any questions about the technicalities of it, happy to take questions at the end or even after, or later on if you've got any specific project questions that you want to discuss. So the InnoPro 807G, we specifically titled it InnoPro 807G as opposed to Fatrafol 807G to have a differentiator. Essentially, this product is manufactured by Fatra. We just wanted to name it InnoPro to give it a differentiator comparative to our exposed roof membranes, essentially. But the system comprises of just a few very basic components. The 807G is the primary membrane, which is protecting the balcony or terrace or area that we're looking to direct tile adhere to. We've got the InnoPro 818. So the difference between the two products, the 807G is a fleece back membrane and the 818 doesn't have the fleece backing. Again, I'll go into the technicalities of that later on. We utilize PVC angles, we've got all the accessories, sealants, puddle flanges, rainwater outlets and overflows, and then various options for adhesives. We've got a moisture curing polyurethane in the Fatra Bowen 1214, we've got various contact adhesives, we've got nitrile, heat activated contact adhesives, spray applied contact adhesives, and then the liquid membrane range, which then facilitates things like parapet walls where we don't continue the sheet up and over. So there's so many different ways we can implement this sort of type of system depending on project specific requirements. Obviously, for many of you in the room, compliance is paramount. The Innopro 807G has 4654 testing and certification as well as 4858, so it can be used both internally and externally. Fully compliant. We also have 2904, meaning that we can implement it into cavities. Obviously, what's critical when we're sticking tiles to the membrane is making sure we've got adequate testing, which is why we've got the 13007.6 for the grass and tile adhesives. We've got a full range of compliance and testing. What we've also got when we're dealing with cavity membranes is we've got 1530 Part 2. Something that's a little bit of a grey area. I've not really spoken to anyone who's definitively said from a fire performance perspective that when we're continuing the membrane into the cavity, we do need to comply to 1530 Part 2. I think it's a little bit of a grey area. I'm hoping someone can definitively give me an answer to that today, which would be nice. But fire performance when we're dealing with horizontal surfaces seem to be a little bit grey and probably a little bit misleading. But we do have 1530 Part 2. The reason why we have 1530 Part 2 is because this exact membrane has been utilised on the Sydney Fish Market's roof. 40,000 square metres of the Innopro 807G has been utilised on the roof there. So we went down the route of a performance solution, and because the membrane is 0.9 mil, it's technically, the weird determinations of the standards, it's deemed as a salkin and not a membrane. Bizarre, but that's the determinations under the standard. So the Innopro 807G. The system, the very basics of the system consist of the membrane being fully bonded to the substrate. Now you can use a two-sided contact adhesive, which aren't overly accommodating in temperatures like this morning where it's 1 or 2 degrees, or you can utilize a moisture-cure polyurethane adhesive. So it's a fully bonded membrane system. And what we do to enable the direct tile adhesion is apply a two-coat primer system, utilizing the Innopro PVC prime. Many reasons why we went down that avenue during the testing and manufacturing process, which I'll explain a little bit later on. And then we offer the Innopond S1E tile adhesive to offer a full system warranty. And obviously from a perspective of supply and install, all the contractors can source the adhesive, the membrane, the angles, the tile adhesive, and essentially sort of streamlines the whole process of supply and installation. What this product has really been brought in for, and many of you know, a product which I will not name our competitors' names, but they do a very good job. They cornered a very niche market in waterproofing to enable people to install a sheet membrane, which is hot air fusion welded to enable direct tile adhesion. And this has been specifically brought in to target and compete with one of our competitors' products. So I wanted to really highlight some differentiators between our system and our competitor's system. And this is by no means me discrediting or detrimenting their system, because they've done an amazing job. They've cornered a very niche market, and they've been very successful at it, which is why we identified the need to bring in a competitive product. So one of the differentiators is the Fatra Bowen 1214 is a moisture-cure polyurethane adhesive. So this is single-sided to the substrate. Alternatively, our competitor's product is a two-sided application contact adhesive. So this adhesive is not temperamental when it comes to moisture content in the substrate like contact adhesives typically are. It's non-flammable. We get better adhesion for a moisture-cure polyurethane adhesive, and it's also resistant to inclement weather. It can technically be used as a temporary membrane. We would typically say prime the substrate to seal the substrate, but the adhesive can actually be used as a temporary membrane prior to laying the membrane system itself. There's some quite big differences with our synthetic rubber membrane competitor, and one of the biggest differences is ours is glass reinforced. I can see a few smiles on the faces around the room. Yeah, ours is glass reinforced, means that it gives the membrane better dimensional stability. And I alluded to this earlier today that it's 0.9 mil. And the reason why typical sheet membranes for direct tile adhesions application is 0.9 mil is because you want to try and reduce the amount of build-up along the laps, joints, and terminations, because you don't want to potentially compromise the tile adhesion. One thing that's quite a common misconception is whether it's a synthetic rubber membrane, a PVC membrane, a TPO membrane, or membranes which utilize hot air fusion welding. A lot of people think that it's the same attachment. Technically, it's not. So TPOs is technically a chemical weld where the heat activates that chemical and then fuses the membrane together. And the synthetic rubber membrane, although it looks like it's a similar weld, PVCs is probably one of the only permanent physically fusion welded laps, meaning that it's the strongest part of the connections and terminations, Stan. Class 2. I believe we're going to be changing that from the standard, aren't we? We're going to be removing classification of the membrane. I'm surprised you asked that question, Stan. You know it's about shear and tear and elongations and illusion. But speaking of class 1, 2, and 3, when we're dealing, everything is in design. You can have a class 3 membrane elongation of 300-400%. I'm not going to go into the misleading stats and statistics around elongation. That's a conversation for a different day. But what we're going to essentially want to achieve when we're sticking tiles to a membrane is better dimensional stability. You don't want something that elongates 500% because your tile adhesive is not going to elongate 500%. So you want it to be as dimensionally stable as possible. But again, it's all about looking at the design, structural and thermal movement along critical junctions, like different types of material that might be used. So dimensional stability adds a lot of benefit from a perspective of making sure the membrane doesn't move to affect the tile adhesion, but then we might need to consider structural and thermal movement details around horizontal and vertical junctions. So it does offer a lot of benefits, but again, there's pros and cons to every system. I'm not standing up here and trying to convince you all that this ticks every single box, because no membrane does. This is just really highlighting the benefits of what I wholeheartedly believe this offers comparative to a market leader. One of the biggest things from a builder's perspective is that the PVC membrane itself is fully UV stable. So again, with under tile membranes, typically they're not UV stable. You've got a 2 to 3 week window. So if you've got rain delays or just general program delays, you're not going to be limited to a very small window of opportunity to make sure your tiles are stuck to your membrane. You can literally leave the balconies and terraces exposed for 20, 30 years. It's designed to be exposed, but it's been brought into the market to basically create a direct tile adhered PVC system. So one of the biggest differentiators, and what a lot of questions I get asked about, is that the synthetic rubber membrane utilizes a polypropylene liner, which enables the tile adhesion to the synthetic rubber membrane, which is a hybrid of butanol and EPDM. But PVCs are designed to be exposed for rooftops, they're fully UV stable, typically self-cleaning. So the general consensus, which is a correct general consensus, is that PVCs are hard to stick to. Very true. We spent around about 4 or 5 years with Fatra. We sent some samples of competitors' products over to the Czech Republic for them to carry out various different manufacturing processes to really establish what we can do to facilitate direct tile adhesion. And we've laminated polypropylene, geotextile fabrics, so many different methods of manufacturing to enable that direct tile adhesion. What we found was that a 2-coat primer system offered far better practicality and adhesion strength, and I'll show you the testing results later on in the presentation. What we also eliminate by implementing a priming system is we eliminate the potential risk of contamination, because when you've got a polypropylene lined membrane or a geotextile lined membrane on the top, these areas are going to be trafficked, they're going to be exposed to dirt and debris, and it's going to embed itself into that polypropylene. Like I say, ideally, that the membrane is laid and then the tiles are installed pretty much straight away, that's all well and good. But we're eliminating the risk of contamination into the fleece, but also, when you're lapping sheet membranes over, you've got to burn that fleece off. So if it's not adequately burnt off, you potentially then might compromise the weld. So we're eliminating a lot of risk of contamination. And as I mentioned about the adhesion, I'll show you the test results later on. We're getting far better adhesion with a 2-coat primer system than what we was comparative to a polypropylene lined fleece. And as I mentioned, with the tile adhesive, we can offer a full system warranty all the way up to the tile adhesives. The basic installation, again, the system is very versatile, it's very adaptable, and again, very similar to that of our competitors. There's many different systems and details that we can implement. We can continue the sheet up into a door sill detail. This is one of probably 4 or 5 different door sill details, and I don't want to go into too much technicality today, because again, it is very flexible and versatile. We've got pin fixing details, we've got pre-made collars, and we've also got sealants, primers, porous and non-porous, depending on the substrate. As I mentioned about cavity, in remedial, cavities are widely remediated and then continue into the balcony and terrace areas. So we've got 2904 and we also have AS1530 Part 2. So if there is any questions regarding combustibility, flammability index is 0 on PVCs because it's a self-extinguishing membrane. So we are one of only 2 suppliers of sheet membranes that has 2904, AS4654, and I believe we're the only supplier to have 1530 Part 2 as well. So again, PVCs are widely regarded to be the best when it comes to fire performance. Termination options, again, many people know the traditional way of utilizing angles, but with the glass reinforcement and obviously with the tiles and the tile adhesive, we've done numerous tests overseas to establish various different termination methodologies. So we can implement the sheet up into an epoxy termination. We can use two pieces using the 807G and the 818, again, depending on practicality and viability on each individual project. We can do isolation terminations. The flexibility of the PVC comparative to its competition, in my opinion, is a lot more fluid. With the implementation of the Innerpro liquid membrane systems as well, we can now offer a full system range. I think probably 5 years ago, where we only supply PVC, it hamstrung us in a sense that people would have to go to us for a sheet and someone else for a liquid. So this really then opens up the opportunities for someone to come to us and we can spec everything. Internal wet areas, basements, direct tile adhered, as well as facade coatings as well. Again, one of the benefits of PVC means that we can hot air fusion weld to PVC products like PVC puddle flanges. We don't need to use tapes or sealants. Tapes and sealants will delaminate and potentially defect relatively prematurely comparative to the membrane itself. So we can weld to PVC puddle flanges, PVC pipes, PVC overflows. So it's fully monolithic, no reliance on sealants and tapes. We do make prefabricated accessories as well. In my opinion, when we're dealing with outlets, I just think puddle flanges are better. They're fully connected to the downpipe. No risk of surcharge migrating underneath. But again, every job is different and there's various different performance requirements. And as you can see, this is a wall outlet where we've prefabricated a pipe collar around the wall outlet. It's fully welded, it's fully connected, and we're not reliant on any sort of sealants and tapes. We can also, for more stranger shapes of overflows, scuppers, or whatever it may be, because we manufacture PVC coated steel, we can fabricate things like scuppers, as you can see here. So it's 0.6 steel, 0.6 PVC. It means that we can hot air fusion weld the sheet membrane to PVC coated scuppers, custom angles and flashings to create, again, one monolithic membrane system. Pipe details for balustrade posts, again, come in all different shapes and sizes. Typically we sleeve, we collar, we clamp. What we can also do, which is starting to become a lot more common, is utilize a TH80 balustrade socket. Now this is an Australian made product, this isn't a Fatra product. But again, it's a PVC socket, which is cored into the substrate or into a hob, and then we can fusion weld the membrane to those sockets, and then the balustrade post is then slotted in and epoxied into that TH80 socket. So again, a number of different options when we're talking terminations and penetrations. The general build-up consists of the fact that the Innerpro 807G, I need to get used to saying that, you can do a bonded screed with then the Innerpro liquid membrane on top, but it has primarily been brought in to be utilized as a direct tile adhered sheet membrane system. And again, these are just a small sample of the details. We always urge people to dialogue with us about each individual project so we can do specifications, details and designs which suit each individual project. So the performance and testing, obviously compliance is paramount, but it's naturally going to get questioned, okay, how does that then perform to its competitor? So we carried out both internal testing and external testing, so it's fully compliant from external independent laboratories. But the synthetic rubber membrane, as you can see, there's 3 tests conducted, and the Fatrafol, we keep saying Fatrafol, I need to get used to saying Innerpro. The Innerpro 807G had 58% higher failure loads than what the synthetic rubber membrane had. Also, from a tensile strength perspective, the Innerpro 807G was 123% higher from a perspective of what the tensile strength test provided. What we also found was that the failure point of the synthetic rubber membrane was typically the tile adhesive would delaminate from the polypropylene. Occasionally, the polypropylene would delaminate from the EPDM top layer, whereas the Innerpro 807G failure point was always the tile from the tile adhesive, 100% of the time. So we had no delamination of the tile adhesive itself. Obviously, many of you care about compliance and performance, but from a perspective of from a builder's point of view, we've had a number of different projects that's already been completed in the direct tile adhered system, and the Fatra system is anywhere from 40 to 50% more cost effective. It's UV stable, so it offers not only performance benefits, better compliance, also from a perspective of cost and programming as well from the builder's point of view. And I genuinely do believe that this system is going to really sort of be our mainstream system. We've seen the success of our competitors' product and the need for sustainable sheet membrane systems on balconies. We're seeing a lot of specifications being drafted. I work quite closely in specifications. So if anybody does have any questions or any projects you wish to discuss after, I'm more than welcome to take any questions now.